Hey, underrated opinion, yeah, but I feel like buses 2014 plus, yeah, any bus 2014 plus in the UK, they just got a more cool vibe about them with their design, the way they sound. They sound a bit cooler to the older things. That's just my opinion, G. Like they just feel a bit more cool, you know. And the older things just feel a bit more basic, no matter how much people strongly, heavily gas them up because they got kicked down in this community. The older things just feel a bit more basic and, you know, boxy. But the things 2014 plus, they feel a bit more hippie with their design, man. Especially street lights, they got rocking design by the side. The way it does that zigzag thing with the window, I like that. Even MMCs. When the MMC came out, bruv, I was actually amazed. I was actually gassed. I can't lie. I can't even lie to you. When the MMC first came out, I was actually gassed because it's a huge glow up to the, regular old Timbuk C200, man. It's like the older Enviros. It's a huge glow up, G. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I was very excited when I first heard about the MMCG. Like, it looked like a whole new, different style. Like, it's amazing, and I think the idea of certain parts being grey, and operators aren't allowed to operators don't really get a choice to change the colours around the interior. I think that's a cool, concept as well. That the MMC came with, because obviously some parts when you look around MMC, it's like a bit of grey, it's like grey only. You don't really see, like, there's some parts on MMC that you don't see like operators get to really change, apart from Stephenson's. I hope I'm saying that correct, but you see Stephenson's, if that's what they're called. That operator that have like the white, and then it's like a green skirt at the bottom of their buses. Yeah, the interiors, right? They somehow on MMC they were allowed to get blue walls all throughout. Somehow, I don't know how, but they were allowed. They were the only operator that were actually allowed to get. You see all the walls here that you usually see on MMCs that are grey. They were allowed to get that in their own colour for once. I find that pretty odd. Did they have to pay extra for that or something? Well, yeah, I think it is a cool design how some parts are just standard grey, and operators don't really get the choice to change that, because because when the MMC first came out, when I saw it with Go Ahead, I'm like, nah, Go Ahead don't usually get grey walls, G. And then you see some walls are blue, you know, so you see what's going on, and then you see Arriva's thing, you know. Since when do Arriva get grey walls on their buses? And then you see some walls are blue, Arriva's usual colour, and then you're like, aha, I see what's going on here. Even Stagecoach, the MMCs, you see the grey walls, you're like, no. I see the linkage here, G. Operators aren't really allowed to touch certain walls on the bus, They can only decide on a certain amount of parts, colours. There's some walls on it that are stock grey. I think it's a cool idea, that the MMC came with like that. I think it's a cool idea, you know. But obviously some people will kind of disagree, because, I understand how some people could think like grey walls don't suit with Arriva, you know. But what I like about it, it's not all the walls are too grey, you know. Like, there's not too much walls that can't be changed on the MMC. Like when the operators order them, there's not too many walls that can't really be changed. Like, there's a bit of grey, there's a bit of grey walls that operators can't change, you know. If it was like majority of the walls are just grey only, then, when operators get these MMCs, I'll be like, you know. But at least they allowed operators to change the colour of some walls that to their preference, you know. But I still don't know how Stephenson's was the only operator that was allowed to get them in, all the walls that you know, standard grey and couldn't really be changed from other operators. Stephensons were allowed to get them in all blue. I don't understand that. Like, did they pay ADL a bit extra money for the buses in order to get that, or what? Like,